So when do I need an accountant and how much should I expect to pay? And that is an awesome question that could have 10 different answers depending on what you're looking for. But one size will not fit all here. So like all things with variability, the answer is it depends. Hopefully this video will give you a little bit to think about, so when you start to make some calls around, and you'll have a better sense for what you want and roughly the budget you can expect, which will make your decision making a little bit easier. If after this video you think that was helpful, you can let me know with a thumbs up and even a little comment. And if you think I could use a little more of that, well then make sure you're subscribed, you hit that notification bell, and you'll get more of this useful content. So, why do people need an accountant? Well, the first thing people think about is taxes. Accountants do taxes, right? And for the most part, any public accounting firm that you will call will very likely do income taxes. Not all firms do personal taxes, and not all firms do corporate taxes. So this is a good first question when you're calling around. Like, what kind of taxes do you do? I know for my firm, for example, we do corporate and personal taxes, but we only accept business clients. So if someone is just needing personal taxes, I'll pass them on to some friends of mine that will rock their world. Generally, having an accountant to do your personal taxes sort of comes down to the complexity of your return, or if your situation isn't too complicated, your willingness to take on the act of doing the tax return yourself. And some people just don't want to be bothered, regardless of how easy it might be. Personal tax returns on their own will generally run anywhere from $150 for a relatively simple return, and they can go up to between $300 and $750 for a return that includes business activities or rental properties. And this can be higher for returns that have large active investment portfolios. Now, if you are a U.S. citizen living in Canada, you still need to do a U.S. return in conjunction with your Canadian return. And all I can tell you here is that this can get expensive, like thousands. Sorry. And my strong advice to you here is get a professional, because things can get pretty complex here. Now, there could also be some variability in the price range I've just mentioned depending on the market you're in. Larger city centers may be a bit higher. Now, if you choose to have someone that is not a CPA firm do your personal taxes, the fees can be significantly reduced, but you will get what you pay for here. CPA firms have the most breadth and depth of experience and knowledge in taxes. They will be the most abreast of everything current, and there are multiple layers of quality control that your return will go through in a CPA firm setting. But if you have like one T4 slip and maybe a donation slip or two, your neighbor that does tax returns for $50 should be fine. Returns like this are pretty hard to screw up, and anything more complicated, I would strongly consider a CPA firm. Now, if you have an incorporated business, there's very few cases in which I would recommend you not use a CPA firm, frankly, but there might be a few. But for this video, I'm going to focus on more the active companies out there and how different CPA firms tackle their pricing. Now, for the most part, people that use a CPA firm will want them to do a full year end. And by year end, I'm generally talking about CPAs helping the owner prepare and firm up or clean up their financial statements, including their income statement and their balance sheet. And generally for small businesses, a CPA will just go ahead and do the corporate tax return as well. But you should understand that there are three main differences in the level of assurance that CPAs can provide your financial information. And by level of assurance, I sort of mean, like, I guess the level of credibility that our involvement with your financial information brings to the table. Remember, there may be other parties relying on the information contained in a set of financial statements. So, like, small business owners aren't always just worried about the tax side of this. So the three types of assurance, there are compilations, which we used to call notice to readers, there's review engagements, and then there's financial audits. Compilations are the least expensive of these three types of assurance levels. Review engagements will be more expensive and can be quite a bit more, and then there's audits, which can be even more expensive yet. But for the most part, small business owners can get away with a compilation, unless there's a third-party requirement to have a higher level of assurance. For example, like a bank requirement as a condition of your bank financing. Audits for small businesses, at least in my neck of the woods down here in East Coast Canada, aren't a very common need, but that too can depend on what one constitutes as a small business. And most of the small businesses I see have revenues that can range from 100,000 to several million, and also solo operations to just under 100 employees. But even on the higher end, the range I see, for the most part, a compilation is going to be fine. Find out what your requirements are before shopping around. Haul out the bank agreement or the shareholder agreement or the funding agreement or whatever third party you may have a responsibility to, and look at the conditions section to see what level of assurance you require. So before I get into the fee ranges you can expect for a basic year end, let me explain a couple ways in which a CPA will determine the cost of your year end. Some firms estimate the number of hours they think it'll take to work on your file, and they multiply by an hourly rate, which is usually different for each member of the team that works on your file. And they'll provide an estimate that way. They will keep track of the number of hours and bill you at the end of the job based on the actual hours spent. This way is the most traditional way in which CPAs price their file. It's not as much based on the product and possible value you receive, but more for the hours spent. While this is very much the way things have been done for centuries in my profession, and I've practiced this approach myself for the first half of my career, I can tell you that this approach tends to create the most stress for both the client and the accountant. Things almost never seem as simple as a client might think they should be, and to be fair, there are a lot of moving parts to the year-end process that generally folks won't see, but files charged by the hour will have a fair level of uncertainty, at least in the first few years. Other firms will have a menu option, like, for example, the year-end with a corporate tax return will cost X, and if you want assistance with your T4s and your T5s, well, there's a charge of Y. And if you want the firm to also do your personal taxes, there's another charge. And if you want to call your accountant throughout the year to ask questions as they arise, you'll be charged according to the time spent versus the number of minutes or hours your queries or consultation takes. This method brings a little more certainty to both the client and the accountant and allows clients to pick and choose the things they need. And then finally, there are accountants that will offer all-inclusive packages that each have a fixed fee based on the different value streams you're looking for. This pricing offers the most certainty for clients, but also flexibility and more opportunity for valuable dialogue with their accountants. Now, this is my favorite option, and it's kind of rare, and not because the accountant ends up making more money over time. This is not the case at all over the long term. This is the option that my firm practices because, our clients love it, and because we have a crazy amount of freedom to focus not just on the regular accountant stuff, but the good stuff that actually puts dollars in their pockets. There's a bit more of an investment component to a fee like that versus just being expense that once paid up and vanishes like a fart in the wind. So pricing, okay. I'm going to focus on compilation level of year ends here because when it comes to review engagements and financial audits, there's just a crap load of variability in the pricing, and it would really need to be looked at in detail by the CPA prior to providing a quote. So when you're calling around, it's important that you're comparing apples to apples. So I would encourage you to ask what fee level one can expect if you require financial statements, a corporate tax return, personal returns, and a good year-end meeting. The way the prospective accountant answers you will just about immediately tell you how they're pricing their files. Like if they say, it depends on the time spent in the file, they charge hourly. If you hear them plugging away at their adding machine while you're laying out what you need, they have more of a menu style pricing format. So for this, make sure you ask them how they handle phone calls to them throughout the year and at what hourly rates they can expect on calls like that. Now, if they immediately give you a price, you're either talking to me or you found another firm that offers a package deal. I would still ask them how they deal with the ad hoc questions throughout the year. But here's the big thing. Ask them what value they bring to the table. Like, you get that they're going to take care of all the financial statement and tax stuff. But what else? This can be a very telling as well. You see, accountants, especially experienced, seasoned accountants that have been around, can bring a small business owners copious amounts of value, not just in the knowledge they can leverage, but even in the network of great professionals they've been able to create over the years to your benefit. But you see, that level of relationship, which the smartest and most successful business owners have, does not come at bargain basement prices, and nor should it. Try asking the next successful business owner that you come into contact with the type of relationship they have with their accountant, and mark my words, their accountant is on speed dial. I always say, keep your friends close, but your accountant closer. So, If you are a high performer, expect to be paying on the higher end of the fee range I'm about to reveal. So, you've waited for it, and here it is. What level of fee can you expect for a run-of-the-mill compilation, including the corporate tax return, some planning, your personal returns, and a good year in review? First off, this video was done in early 2022, and I have no idea what joys inflation will bring in the next few years, so keep that in mind. But you can expect anywhere from a couple $1,000s all the way up to $5,000 for the services I've just mentioned. And I know it's a big range, but it is a big range. And the things that'll help you determine what the service differences are lie in the answer to the value question. You see, if a prospective accountant says $5,000 but doesn't have very meaningful things to say about the value they bring to the table, that might be a little expensive. But on the flip, if someone quotes a lot less than the lower end of the range, like less than $2,000 I mentioned, I would also be a little weary. There's a lot to take care of a corporate year-end file. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, a lot of communication, a lot of overhead costs is also involved, including softwares and hardwares. A lot of training costs. Yes, CPAs are required to undergo regular training hours every year to the tune of like 40 hours of continuous training. There's liability insurance, there's overhead costs that add to the pricing formula. So someone charging less than $2,000 could be taking a lot of shortcuts. Now, to be fair, there could be some very legit easy peasy files that can be done less than that. But if you have a regular business, these are the fee ranges you can expect. So make sure you go into these things with eyes wide open. Hopefully this is helpful. Remember, in addition to me doing these videos, I'm also the managing partner at Swain CPA, and we are accepting high-performing clients just like you. So book a call with me and let's chat about what you need. Have a good one.